It's another regular 90s day in 90s Penguin Village, and my CPU is 1 million megahertz. Wait, who's this weird kid with the weird cloud? What's a Dragon Ball? Clearly, this is a very special crossover episode of Dr. Slump Dissection. Welcome back to what is surely the only video series exclusively dedicated to the 1990s Dr. Slump remake. Okay, yes, this is obviously Dragon Ball Dissection. Please don't leave. I never thought I'd get to dust off my Dr. Slump Dissection fake out again. That was 12 years ago. Can you believe it? I guess those of you who stayed until the end of the video last time are saying, I'm so confused because isn't today's Dragon Ball Dissection supposed to be about Nekomajin? Yeah, well, that's what you dorks get for sticking around until the end of the video anyway. Why don't you cut out early like normal people? I'm only hurting myself when I write lines like that. Yes, it was supposed to be Nekomajin. In fact, I'd already written the script for it and recorded the audio. Then, all of a sudden, and I can't even remember why, I got it in my head that maybe I should check out the 90s Dr. Slump Dragon Ball crossover. And wouldn't you know it, that crossover started up just days before the first chapter of Nekomajin came out. So if I'm going to do this chronologically, I gotta get my slump on. So what are we even talking about here? Well, in case you're completely in the dark, Dr. Slump was Toriyama Akira's first running manga, starting in 1980. It was the series that made him famous. Yeah, it was not Dragon Ball that made Toriyama famous, it was his comedy series about a super strong robot girl getting into all kinds of bizarre fourth-wall breaking hijinks in Penguin Village. You might remember that I mentioned at the end of Dragon Ball GT last year that the animated adaptations of Toriyama's series kept to the same time slot, Wednesdays at 7 on Fuji TV. That's when Dr. Slump Arale-chan aired. When that series ended, it was taken over by Dragon Ball, which was then succeeded by Dragon Ball Z, which was then succeeded by Dragon Ball GT. And when Dragon Ball GT ended at the end of 1997, a new Dr. Slump series took its place. It ran from 1997 to 1999 for 74 episodes and was basically a remake, but updated for the late 90s. And wouldn't you know it, episodes 56 through 59 feature a major Dragon Ball crossover. But why am I even doing this? It's not like I didn't know this existed. I did. I just assumed it wasn't worth covering. Obviously, it's not in my best interest to devote my Dragon Ball dissecting power to literally everything that's farted out the Dragon Ball name over the past 40 years. This isn't even Dragon Ball, it's Dr. Slump. It's not only Dr. Slump, it's that other Dr. Slump series nobody cares about. I thought this was going to be either one of two things. It would be a nothing bit of novelty fluff, like another Dragon Ball crossover with a popular franchise I'd read the same day and categorically decided wasn't worth reviewing. Or it was just going to be another retelling of the Dr. Slump crossover from the Red Ribbon Army arc that I'd already seen 3 different versions of. And while it does lean quite a bit more to that latter assumption, it was actually really fascinating. And given that so many people right now, or always, seem to think I hate Dragon Ball, I wanted to share something that surprised me by making me really, really happy. This was the surprise gem of my exploration of content from the dead Dragon Ball era. I'd never seen it. I didn't think I ever would see it. I probably wouldn't have ever seen it were I not doing these videos. And it turned out to be amazing. I just don't get that many surprises anymore. So am I being overly self-indulgent, or am I introducing you all to a unique Dragon Ball experience you probably missed? I guess that's going to be up to you to decide. To refresh you on this, because it's been a long time, during the Red Ribbon Army arc of Dragon Ball, Toriyama decided to have Goku and General Blue stumble into the world of Dr. Slump so Goku could team up with Arale. That crossover took place over 3 chapters of the original manga. It was expanded into just over 2 episodes for the Dragon Ball animated series, And even the third Dragon Ball movie, which very loosely adapted these storylines, worked in an extremely random bit where Arale instead fights Tao Pai Pai. So what makes this time around different? Well, it's actually something that seems like it should be really obvious, but for some reason, it just never occurred to me. Every single time the two stories crossed over for this, it was always Dr. Slump guest starring in Dragon Ball, because it's Dragon Ball that has ultimately endured and has continued to be revived. But remember that Dr. Slump was famous in its own right. When Dragon Ball premiered, it was riding Dr. Slump's coattails. Ever since, though, it's been Dr. Slump riding Dragon Ball's coattails. This crossover exists in a singular point in time, the only moment where it's Dragon Ball that's dead, and it's Dr. Slump that's back, baby! It's not Arale who's the guest star, like we'll later see once again in Dragon Ball Super. It's Goku who's the guest star, and that makes for a completely different story. Firstly, if this is going to be told from the Dr. Slump perspective, it requires a different structure. Remember that the Penguin Village stuff in Dragon Ball is not a complete story on its own. It's just another stop for Goku in between the Pirate Cave and Carding Tower. He flies in and flies out. It works perfectly for Dragon Ball, but if you're going to tell this from a Dr. Slump perspective, it's very unsatisfying as is. Goku coming into this world has to become its own story. So Goku doesn't chase General Blue into Penguin Village. Instead, Arale happens upon this weird Son Goku kid who has wandered in looking for the last Dragon Ball. The Red Ribbon eventually follow him, but all of this stuff is resolved within the confines of Penguin Village. Goku and Arale effectively defeat the army. Goku collects the last Dragon Ball here. Shenlong is summoned. A wish is made. This clearly can't exist within the continuity of Dragon Ball. It's its own thing. But it is a complete story. It has to be. The other obvious but necessary difference is the issue of framing. You probably know I talk about framing a lot on this channel. How a story is told, from whose perspective, and to what end are as important as the story itself, if not more so. Because this crossover is typically told in Dragon Ball, it's seen through the lens of Goku and, to a lesser extent, General Blue. Yes, the manga opens with that great fake-out so that it seems like this is going to be Dr. Slump's perspective. All the characters featured get a chance to marvel at the idiosyncrasies of the other group, but it's primarily saying, wow, isn't that Arale girl wacky? What's the deal with that plum-sucking superhero? How come that baby can make a dragon radar? It's Dragon Ball commenting on Dr. Slump. But because this is framing the story so that we relate to the Dr. Slump characters, we're now looking at Son Goku through their eyes and seeing how he disrupts their lives rather than the other way around. Arale and the gang have to stop Goku's rampage when he suddenly becomes a giant monkey. Akane has to deal with the old pat-pat. Midori gets more than she bargains for when she tries to use the Nyoibo as a clothesline. Once again, this isn't just a quick flyover. In Dragon Ball, Goku's Dragon Radar gets damaged because of all the fighting he goes through. Here, it breaks when Arale grabs his tail and he falls off of Kinton. Same outcome, but vastly different results. See, the original crossover happens after the chronology of Dr. Slump. This one appears in the middle of it. Turbo hasn't been born yet, so he's not around to instantly cobble together a new Dragon Radar for Goku. Senbei has to actually fix it this time, and that means Goku has to stay in Penguin Village until he does. Goku lives with the Norimaki family. He sleeps in the same bed as Arale and the Gachan. He even goes to school. Yeah, stop criticizing Dragon Ball Evolution for putting Goku in high school. There is precedent. And it's probably the funniest episode in this crossover because, yeah, if you're framing this story as Goku being the weird interloper who doesn't fit in this world, what better outlet for that than to put him in school? He only goes because he's promised a free school lunch, and Senbei is quite ready to let somebody else take on the responsibility of feeding him. In class, Daigoro decides he must civilize Goku, who won't stop talking about lunch, and tasks him with solving an arithmetic problem. It becomes an obsession for Goku, who literally takes all day to figure it out. He keeps working on it through every class. When he runs out of his own fingers and toes to count on, he uses other students. He's too distracted to eat his lunch. This is hilarious, although it might stretch his characterization a bit. I feel the real Goku would probably get bored of this pretty quickly, especially with food on the line. But he is always pushing his own limits, so part of me does buy this, and it is really fun to see him test himself in a new way. It's like those puzzle rings in the Cell Arc filler. Little does Goku know, though, that the Red Ribbon Army has infiltrated Penguin Village. Who should it be but Murasaki? Yes! If you're gonna bring this stuff back, might as well pull in the best character. Murasaki teams up with King Nico-chan and his lackey and disguises himself as a doctor. While he's giving the students physical examinations, the aliens steal the unguarded Dragon Balls from the classroom. And this is probably my favorite joke. Since these examinations are nothing but a ruse, when Murasaki is examining Arale and can't find a heartbeat because she's a robot, he just goes, I don't hear a heartbeat. Oh well, next! Goku and Arale are easily able to take out the ninja quintuplets, but they don't have the Dragon Balls. Nico-chan agreed to work with Murasaki if he'd give Nico-chan a UFO in exchange, a deal that Murasaki has no intention of keeping. Once they have the balls, Nico-chan's subordinate suggests maybe they could just, wish for a UFO. Unfortunately, they don't know how to use the Dragon Balls and don't have all of them anyway, so they assume the balls are worthless. I feel like the show missed an opportunity here where the dim-witted aliens could have thrown the Dragon Balls away, escalating the conflict so that Goku and Arale have to find them again, but no, it's just an excuse to make it easy for Goku and Arale to take them back. Of course, Murasaki is not the final boss here. It's General Blue, who likewise arrives in Penguin Village after Murasaki fails. And that confrontation goes pretty much how you'd expect it to. But unlike when Toei adapted this crossover in 1987, they don't make General Blue a pedophile this time. Yay! In fact, they play it really safe and just never have Blue and Obocha-man interact at all. Probably a smart move. What happens instead is that after Blue is beaten, he ends up at Barber Soramame, and Kuri Kenton gives him a mohawk. See, this doesn't play on a harmful stereotype and is instead much more relatable, as, due to the haircut, Blue worries he'll never get to be a bride. Girl, same. While Murasaki and Blue are still skulking around, another problem arises. With Goku having stayed in Penguin Village for so long and gotten to know everybody, they now know about the Dragon Balls, and are tempted by the possibility of having their wishes granted. The villagers compete to butter up Goku to make him more amenable. They storm the Norimaki household to get the radar. Senbei and Midori fight over which wish is dumber, hot secretaries or eating watermelon in the spring rather than the summer. Arale seems to be the only person not trying to get Goku's Dragon Balls. That doesn't mean she doesn't have a secret wish of her own, though. Boob missiles! Girl, same. Once the radar is fixed and Goku finds the last Dragon Ball, all hell breaks loose. Everybody wants their wish. Dr. Mashirito tries to steal the Dragon Balls, Blue and Murasaki disguise themselves to play on everyone's sympathies, Goku and Arale take down the Red Ribbon warship, but Blue and Murasaki get away with the balls and prepare to make their own wish. And again, this is where this self-contained format requires Dr. Slump to cherry-pick the best ideas from the original Dragon Ball. Well after the original crossover, we find out that Commander Red hasn't wanted the Dragon Balls to take over the world, but to make himself taller. Well, here, the bad guys summon Shenlong, and when he asks for their wish, they both shout at the same time. Murasaki wishes for them to take over the world. Blue wishes for his hair to go back to normal. I can't believe I'm saying this. But I think this is funnier than the height thing because it's even dumber. As Murasaki argues, Blue's hair will grow back on its own. This argument gives Goku and Arale time to catch up and finish them off. But it also allows everyone else to catch up too. As they all try to make their wishes heard, one wish finally is the farmers, which results in a tractor falling from the sky. This conclusion is a bit weak to me. I know it's supposed to be an anticlimax, but it's not like his wish is any more mundane than a lot of the others. In fact, Guy probably needs a tractor, certainly more than Midori needs a watermelon. So I'm not sure why this is the big disappointment. This could have been anybody and it wouldn't have played any differently. Heck, just let General Blue getting his hair back be the twist. With that resolved, Goku finally leaves Penguin Village. Unlike other versions of this, I can believe he truly made some new friends. And as he flies off on Kinton, Midori realizes they never asked Goku what wish he'd been trying to grant in the first place. Senbei wagers it must have been a really big dream beyond their imaginations. But they never find out. We never find out. Nothing of value was lost. And that's the kind of anticlimax I can get behind. I mean, at least I hope Bora's not left rotting out in a field somewhere. The timing of the Dr. Slump remake results in an interesting Dragon Ball crossover. The late 90s was pretty dead for Dragon Ball in Japan. It wasn't where I'm from, but it was in Japan. But it exists as a piece of the times in which it was made and the series it's a part of. Remember that the Dragon Ball anime inherited a lot of personnel from the first Dr. Slump Arale-chan anime, from the composer to the actors. Koyama Mami, who voiced Arale, went on to play Lunch. Utsumi Kenji, Senbei, played lots of roles in Dragon Ball in its early years, from the Tenkaichi Budokai announcer to Rikum to Shenlong. That made it pretty easy for Dragon Ball to do its crossover with Dr. Slump in the 80s. For whatever reason, the 90s Dr. Slump series replaced the entire cast as far as I can tell. This time, when Nozawa Masako blows into town as Son Goku, it's not really a reunion of the old guard. But she's not the only familiar voice in this crossover. Given how much time recently I spent watching Dragon Ball GT, I immediately recognized that Midori's new voice was Minaguchi Yuko, who plays Videl and Pan in the Dragon Ball franchise. It also turns out that King Nico-chan and his servant are Broly and Vegeta. Shimada Ben and Horikawa Ryo. Power couple, honestly. That's not the only big difference, though. Everyone says that the 90s Dr. Slump looks like Dr. Slump put through a Dragon Ball GT filter. And yeah, it does have that mid to late 90s Toriyama look to it. But interestingly, I don't think this version of Son Goku looks much like either the GT Goku or the 10th anniversary Goku. He doesn't have the darker skin tone or the more muscular physique. In fact, he looks rather simplified. I think he looks cute, although I'm not sure why his shoes are black. His Kame Dogi doesn't even have any Kame kanji on it. In fact, Japanese writing really highlights how this show is a product of its time. One of the first things I noticed when I started watching the series was its text. Someone please feel free to correct me on any of this, but when I look at classic Dragon Ball in Japanese, it appears to me that the text is handled in classic style. It's handcrafted and optically composited, like the Star Wars opening crawls used to be. And I would guess that's because it was difficult for early computers to replicate the intricacies of the written Japanese language. But in this show, it looks like they moved to digital fonts. And I can tell because the credits look really pixelated, similar to Chiron's in the late 70s and early 80s. There's definitely more digital work in this series. I noticed so many shots during these 4 episodes where a character or a vehicle gets closer or farther away from the camera, and rather than drawing multiple frames of that, they just scale the same frame up or down. It looks really bad and obvious. The show also makes use of digital morphine transitions to represent Goku's transformation. The Dr. Slump wiki claims this was one of the earliest anime to be digitally inked, which I can't confirm, but it lines up with everything else I noticed. I'm not sure why this would be the case, but maybe these production growing pains explain why this Goku is so stylistically different from other versions. Perhaps this serves as a glimpse at what a Dragon Ball series would have looked like had one been made at this time. It was clearly a period of transition for animation. See, I do pay attention to these things. I had a surprisingly great time with this. As you probably know, the Red Ribbon Army arc is what I consider to be Dragon Ball at its best. I know that's a minority opinion, although given that, it's odd how many times Dragon Ball keeps going back to that well, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I have an uncle who works at Toei. This crossover with Dr. Slump is something I never knew I needed. If I ever desire a bite-sized Dragon Ball story that hits that perfect balance of action and comedy that encapsulates so much of what appeals to me, I'm probably going to come back to this. It reminds me of the first 3 Dragon Ball movies in that it provides a limited window into a whole new world. Just like I wondered what might have happened to that Son Goku after he rode off on Kinton for the last time, I now wonder the same thing about this Goku. Sometimes it's really helpful, really refreshing to see an old story told from a new perspective. And that can be beautiful, even if Arale does have brown hair for some reason. Dragon Ball Dissection is continuing to cut a path between the major eras of Dragon Ball content to chart how we got to where we are in the modern day. I promise, I think it should be Nekomaji next time. I actually don't see how it could be anything else. I'm amazed I managed to preempt the half-completed Nekomajin video and still get this one out on time. I can't imagine I could do it again. It's gotta be Nekomaji next time, a series that manages to largely bridge the entire chronological gap from classic to modern era. We're gonna be covering several years next time. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to Z-Man for making this release accessible, since this is a rather hard show to track down. I hope you can find it in your heart to help out the channel at patreon.com/MrFusion. Be sure not to use the Apple app though, as it actually charges extra and I don't want that for you. I think that's about it. I really hope I'm giving you all reasons to stick around until the end, and I'm sorry I made you look silly for causing you to think it'd be Nekomajin this time. I didn't mean it, I swear. I'm just trying to do the best I can. And I'll see you next time. I had fun with that.